I'm looking for someone. It's hot as hell in here.
Time for a developer diary. It's a bit of a shame that I haven't actually done any developing lately, unless you count developing Hypothermia because of the high heating bills. But what I have done is been inspired. And I was inspired a long time ago by Silent Hill, particularly Silent Hill 2, and it's just been announced that there's a new Silent Hill 2 remake coming soon. So in this video, I'm going to talk about why Silent Hill 2 is my favourite horror game of all time and how it has influenced my point-and-click adventure game, Paradise Falls, out at some point in the next decade. Now, the new Silent Hill 2 trailer has received quite a bit of backlash actually, it sounds quite familiar if you're a fan of point-and-click adventure games, and we know how that one worked out. It's not by the original creators like Return of Monkey Island was, but it's not being made into a pachinko machine, so you'd think people would be happy.
自力解除ステージエスケープチャレンジは規定ゲーム数間クリーチャーから逃げ切ればボーナス確定
I think it looks okay, and I think it seems to capture the spirit and attitude of the original game pretty well. I'm going to be talking about Silent Hill 2, which means that this video is going to contain spoilers, so if you've never played Silent Hill, what are you waiting for? It is clearly one of the best games ever made, definitely the best horror game ever made, so instead of watching this, just go out there and play it right now. How could I sell it to you? Well, the gameplay is absolutely abysmal. It's got a terrible semi-fixed camera. It kind of feels like the guy from Mario 64 and the little cloud is controlling it, but he's had a few pints of gin, so he's a bit wishy-washy everywhere as you're walking along. But it adds to the atmosphere of being detached from the main character. The combat is completely unresponsive. James can swing a piece of wood with the best of them. In fact, he swings a piece of wood like any human being would swing a piece of wood, pretty badly, and the combat is basically just mash the button and hope for the best. The whole facade of this quest, of this everyman in a search for his wife, is just a massive ruse to take you to a point where you just cannot believe what's about to happen to him and realise that he is the integral part of this game, and the monsters aren't the real monsters in the game, the central character actually is. Before long you realise that the demons in the game are never going to be as scary as what's going on inside James's head.
This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?
Silent Hill 2 is all about the demons within the human soul, and putting your hands down toilets. In my last video I talked about pixel art not being scary. Now, one of the reasons why Silent Hill 2 is the quintessential horror game is because it doesn't try to be scary. It's not like it's constantly jumping out on you. There's no jump scares really to speak of. What you do get is psychological horror, and I don't think graphics really matter when it comes to psychological horror, because this is a game about thinking the unthinkable, doing the undoable, and coming to terms with the idea that human beings can make dark and depressing choices and having to live with those consequences. In Paradise Falls, one of the central conceits that I'm going for is that the player can make the character do things that he doesn't want to do, and it's almost like that will within him not to do these horrific things, but unfortunately he's not under his own control. So that's where those influences come for me in my game. Silent Hill 2 is also a puzzle game, and it's got some of the best point-and-click style Sierra bonkers logic you could ever possibly want. There's times when you have to combine loads of different random items just to open a door, when the guy could just literally use his crowbar or his gun or whatever he's carrying just to break through. Luckily though, you can completely remove all the puzzle difficulty and all the combat difficulty, because what this game is about story. The way the player plays the game affects the final outcome of the game, and it's very subtle psychological things that you wouldn't even notice you were doing, like how much you look at a photograph, or how much you use a certain weapon, or whether you walk down a corridor at a certain speed.
Just go home already.
Mary, what are you saying?
Look, I'm disgusting. I don't deserve flowers. Between the disease and the drugs, I look like a monster.
The game is testing you constantly, and that's another element of that game that I'm definitely going to steal / be inspired by. Silent Hill 2 took what Silent Hill 1 did, and it removes all the supernatural stuff like the cults, and replaces it with what the most important part of it was, which was the town, and the town is calling people there to torment, and it calls James there, and it calls another cast of characters there to torment them too. You've got characters who have been bullied, you've got characters that are been abused, and the town, and they're all, it seems like they're all seeing different things. You start to think that the town is actually the embodiment of all your fears, anxieties, and repressed desires.
It's hot as hell in here.
You see it too. For me, it's always like this.
In Paradise Falls, the idea of changing the environment through the character's actions is something that I'm definitely going to be using. If you make the player act in a certain way, it will change his perception of reality and allow you to solve puzzles in a different way. Maybe the area will change completely, maybe it will change a little bit, but it'll add a bit of diversity to the environment. In the game Silent Hill 2, James Sunderland receives a letter from his dead wife, and he goes in search of her in the town of Silent Hill.
I got a letter. The name on the envelope said Mary. A dead person can't write a letter. Mary died of that damn disease 3 years ago.
James puts himself in situations that only a man with nothing left to lose would put himself in. Literally and figuratively dives into the depths of hell and beyond in search of something that he knows can't be true. That element of despair in the main character is another thing that I just really love about Silent Hill 2, and in Dennis in Paradise Falls, that's one of the facets of his character that I really wanted to implement. A man who is just willing to go through anything in order to get what he wants and get what he needs, which is freedom of his own mind more than anything. The best thing about Silent Hill 2's monster design was that they are an embodiment of what James's greatest fears are. James Sunderland is someone with a lot of repressed anger and frustration, and the character models and the monsters are representative of that in the same way. Even Pyramid Head, which he's like an executioner, is there to punish James. It's only when James lets go of his self-hatred that he finally defeats Pyramid Head. And it's a game about looking inwards. You have all these monsters, all these fantastically designed monsters, mannequins, and it's just disgusting imagery. But really it's what's going on in James's mind that is creating all this. So it's that fear within, that darkness within, that is a really key element of the Silent Hill 2 experience. I mentioned before that there's a cast of side characters with their own demons, and James, having seen his wife die, is constantly tortured by a doppelganger of his wife who gets killed over and over and over again throughout the game. And she represents a different side of his wife, Mary, that is now long gone.
Aren't you Maria?
I'm not your Mary.
So, you're Maria?
I am. If you want me to be.
The voice acting in Silent Hill 2 is strange and bizarre and a little bit otherworldly and off-kilter. It's also one of the first games that I know of that use motion capture, and the voice actors were able to motion capture and do the voices, which really adds to the pathos of the character when you finally see him at his lowest point. In my game, the main character is also on a search for his daughter, and he's looking for this person that he knows is long gone. So you can see my influences on where I'm being very honest. I'm completely being honest. My game is fully inspired by Silent Hill 2. It's nowhere near the level of Silent Hill 2, and I don't expect it to be. But I just wanted to talk about how amazing this game really is. Not to mention the sound design and the music and the atmosphere created by the ambience, and just the strange like whisperings that go on, and the sound of the scratching of the monsters as they crawl along the floor. And all these monsters feel like they've got somewhere else to be, like you're not their biggest problem, like they're in so much pain and angst. They're trying to get away from you, if anything. And you know, it just adds to the element of that this is a game about a human being who is a dark person and has a dark secret. It's just a fantastic game. I love Silent Hill 2.
All I want from you is an answer.